Welcome, and thanks for visiting American Atheists website. I'm Ellen Johnson, the president of American Atheists. I want to talk about something that happened halfway around the world, but which has repercussions for all of us here in the United States. You've heard of Salman Rushdie, who wrote the Satanic Verses and who had a fatwa or death sentence issued against him in 1990 by the late Ayatollah Khomeini. His book supposedly blasphemed the Prophet Muhammad. Rushdie had to go into hiding, and even some Christian leaders joined the Muslims in criticizing Rushdie for supposedly offending Islamists and insulting religious beliefs. Eventually, the Iranian government called off the fatwa, although you still hear some Iranian demagogues calling for his death. Well, they're at it again. This time, it's in India. Islamists charged into the press club of Hyderabad, India, where writer Taslima Nasrin was promoting her latest book. They began shouting, throwing chairs, and bullying anyone who stood in their way. They demanded that Miss Nasrin be prosecuted for blasphemy, and one of the leaders told the television news crew, "Nasrin is the enemy of Islam. She is a black spot on Muslims. We cannot bear anyone talking against Islam." Both Salman Rushdie and Taslima Nasrin are critical of religion, obviously. Her books, writings, and speeches denounce the crimes and oppression of women and intellectuals in the Muslim world. She is also an atheist, and I had the privilege of meeting her several years ago when I invited her to speak at the Godless Americans March on Washington. All of her books have been banned in her native country of Bangladesh, and for years she has lived under death sentences imposed by Islamic leaders. Salman Rushdie has endured years of similar treatment, but I think that the hatred directed at Taslima Nasrin is even more severe and hysterical because she's a woman, and she speaks out against man's brutality towards women, which is fostered by religion. Atheists and other freethinkers have traditionally been at the forefront when it comes to fighting for the right to freedom of speech and in opposition to censorship. Because if you can't speak your mind, share your opinion, and make your case in the public square, then you cannot be an atheist. Here in the United States, we know from our history that religion-based movements have been the most belligerent and hostile critics of freedom of expression. They've advocated laws to ban movies and books having to do with sexuality, birth control, science, or anything else they happen to disagree with. They instituted blasphemy laws because they didn't want their theology subjected to criticism. Another thing that makes this latest story about Taslima Nasrin significant is what that belligerent Muslim thug told the television news crew. "We cannot bear anyone talking against Islam." Religious leaders demand that their religion or religion in general be immune from any form of criticism or questioning or so-called insults. They demand special protection for their ideas. They want to resurrect blasphemy laws which punished anyone who questioned the divinity of a particular god or who criticizes or ridicules religion. Well, in 2005, Italian author, journalist, and political interviewer Oriana Fallaci was indicted by a judge in her native Italy under provisions of the Italian Penal Code which proscribe the vilipendio or vilification of any religion admitted by the state. The religion she vilified was Islam. She did this in her book titled The Force of Reason, and she faced up to 2 years imprisonment for it. She was at that time in her mid-70s, living in New York and dying of cancer. Sounds like the Dark Ages, doesn't it? Well, recently, in New York City, State Senator Serafin Maltese introduced blasphemy legislation. We find this kind of legislation comes up frequently. This is why American Atheists has for decades spoken out in defense of freedom of expression. When you're an atheist or a freethinker and not part of the majority, you need to have freedom of speech, and you need to stop censorship in order to be able to speak your mind. I don't think that religious creeds, whether they be Christian or Islamic or anything else, should be protected by the government or be immune from or outside the realm of philosophical inquiry or criticism. And I'm going to continue speaking out against superstition, censorship, blasphemy laws, and I'm going to continue to speak out for atheism. I hope that Salman Rushdie and Taslima Nasrin do too. and I encourage you to join us in the fight, and if you agree with me, I hope you'll join American Atheists. You can learn more by exploring our website. Click on the link buttons on the left for all sorts of information about atheism and American Atheists. Visit our shopping section for our many books and products. And if you agree with what we have to say, we'd like you to join us. Members receive a magazine dedicated just to them, American Atheist. So thanks again for visiting the American Atheist website. I'm Ellen Johnson.